And all the hours we spent together, I wonder will our life still change? What would be disclosed forever?
All right. So, do you want to try to pick up exactly where we left off yesterday?
Sure.
Awesome. Good. So I guess what we were kind of talking about was high school and where you were with the music in high school. So I guess my question is sort of what happened with Transilience kind of after your graduation. Did you guys stay together? Did people move away? What happened to the band around that time?
Well, actually, what happened is that I think in my last kind of senior year, I got more interested in film, like music videos and film, and I got really interested in that, the visual kind of side of art, and and it was also kind of time to go. Everyone was like, "Oh, you got to go to what college are you going to?" You know, and all this stuff. And it's like, I think I knew that I didn't want to go to music to like Berkeley, or I knew that I didn't want to go to any of that type of schooling. So I decided that I wanted to go to film school, and I also applied to, and all the universities I applied to were all Canadian, because in the end it's a lot cheaper to study in Canada than it is in the U.S.
Pretty smart.
Especially as a non-American citizen. Because I'm in the end I'm still a Canadian citizen.
You don't have dual citizenship?
No, I have right now I'm here in the U.S. under an artist visa.
Cool.
So anyway, and I don't know, I think it was also impacted by the fact that I was kind of getting, I know this might, I was actually kind of, even during all of my metal days, I was always kind of, especially we were talking about psychedelic drugs and everything, it's like the psychedelic drugs actually kind of, how should I say, opened my window into other music outside of thrash metal. And so I got into bands, and so instead of only watching Headbangers Ball, I also started watching 120 Minutes, which was more the sort of, on MTV I'm talking about. I don't know if you know.
Of course I know.
Okay, you know that. Okay, good. So, on 120 Minutes, I was watching shit like the Sugar Cubes, which is Bjork's first band, Cocteau Twins, Susie and the Banshees, Peter Murphy, definitely like left of center bands that were like more visually oriented and were just more visual oriented bands. Whereas the thing with metal is that the visual is always the same. It's always these guys with banging their head against the wall. You know what I mean? And so what I liked about, Cocteau Twins, or that it was like, I felt like it was even more about the art than about their own image. Like they wouldn't have band photos on their albums. You know what I mean?
Well, it's also a greater color palette. I think if you think about the metal, the palette is like black and gray and dark blue. I mean,
exactly.
seriously, it's all darkness. and
Yeah.
and when you think about the psychedelic color palette and the color palette of those other bands, it can, it can be a whole rainbow of colors.
Yeah, and I think also, I think it was via like Cocktail Twins that I started appreciating like beauty in music, like that music can actually be really beautiful and not just angry, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that you were more, or that you probably would have had a lot of Beatles in your background growing up, because I can hear that influence for sure.
Okay, well, you know what it is? It's like, let's put it this way. Before I got into metal, when I was a really young kid, when I was like 7, 8 years old, 9 years old, especially I think around the time that I was like 10, 11, is when I was I was so into just pop music in general. I mean, I had, and mainly influenced from my brother, who was listening to the Beatles. He was listening to, Rush and, just pop music in general. I mean, I was into like anything that was, top of the pops. Like living in Germany, we were actually listening to BFBS, which is the British Forces Broadcasting System. So I was listening to a lot of British charts music. So, we're talking like Wham and Duran Duran and all that kind of shit. And the thing is, I think, when I became a metalhead, I just like put all that pop music away, thinking it was garbage. And then what happens is that, like, when you come out of metal, or like when you look back on some of the pop music that was out there, like you realize it's, because I think for me, I think a lot of people, a lot of metalheads think this way, or hardcore kids, they think that pop music is really easy to do. They think it's just like, oh, it's just sugar-coated candy pop. Anyone can do that. And I think the more I got into metal and taking metal to the extreme, at some point you kind of hit a wall, like you kind of hit a ceiling of what you can do. And then it's like, and then you realize, and then you listen to, or like I was really into like this band, Level 42. I was already into like kind of jazzier pop stuff before I got into metal. You know what I mean? And to be honest, I never totally dropped my love for any of this music. Even like I remember I used to listen to, even when I was a metalhead, I would like secretly listen to like Anita Baker, of all people. And like I remember one time my bass player caught me like trying to figure out like guitar lick, Anita Baker guitar licks. And he was like, dude, the fuck are you listening to, bruh? Anyway, so I was always kind of secretly into all sorts of melodic, beautiful shit. And then I think at some point, you have to drop the, as you mature, you want to kind of drop, you want to get more you just want to be more real about the things that music that affects you, you know, and you want to be able to express it without the constraints of, you know, you have to have long hair and you have to have a T-shirt and you have to, you know what I mean? Like, so, and I think when I saw the Sugar Cubes, I remember seeing this music video by the Sugar Cubes called Cold Sweat, and I thought, God, this is so liberating. It's not metal, it's not pop music, it's like, I don't know what it is, but it's the sound of freedom, you know, and I feel like via acid, I feel like I became more interested in expressing, you know, in making music that is equivalent or that embodies the sound of freedom. Like, I don't want it to be it shouldn't belong in any category or any drawer, you know. It should be, it's rid of any kind of conformity, period, you know. And so that's I think that's kind of where my interest in film came out of, and then my interest in just making music and actually making music that wasn't metal, you know, and that's kind of how my first solo album came together, was kind of me just wanting to not be a part of anything, just be free, you know.
Before you put out the solo album, did you go to film school? And and where did you go?
So
what did you learn there?
So I ended up getting accepted at York University in Toronto, which actually has a pretty good film program, and I'm not exactly sure why they accepted me. I mean, I had to send in. Well, actually, no. I mean, I had to send in, you know, some video work, and you know, I edited together some stuff, and anyway, I got into film school, and then, thankfully, there was more acid heads in Toronto that I could hook up with in my dorm, and, you know, my journey continued into just finding my voice, you know, in a chaotic world.
Did you make a bunch of music videos while you were in college?
I didn't make. We made a couple of short films, and I would always end up being the guy that had to do the music for the films, because a lot of times they'd put us in groups, and then I would end up doing the music. But there was this one guy, Adrian Ferrazzuti, who became like my best friend. You know, we ended up making a bunch of short films together, and he was kind of a big influence on me in terms of just radical ideas that were just non-linear, you know, very like, I think I'm just always, I respond more to just old ideas that are coming from out of nowhere and are just just, strong statements. I feel like I'm just, and it could be anything. It could be like in any format. I feel like those are the things that always strike me the most when people are coming out with stuff where it's just like, wow, it just sticks out. Like, it really sticks out, and it's kind of almost disrespectful. And I feel like there's something. I was having this conversation with my friend Peter Venuto earlier today about, I think the whole magic or the trick of the sort of inner dialogue that you have as an artist is always like, on the one hand, you want to show respect to all the artists, all the forefathers that created this venue for us to be able to make music. Like, people who, like Miles Davis or, any of these, like, pioneers that kind of broke all the rules. It's like, when you make music, you're kind of like, what's the expression, like standing on the shoulder of giants, right? And then, but at the same time, you've also got to break the rules, in order to, I think being an artist means, on the one hand, showing respect to the people that have created a platform for, the arts in general. And then on the same token, breaking the rules and saying, fuck everyone. So, and I think, like, if you're aware of it, the more you're aware of it, it's actually kind of, it can, maybe initially it could be kind of like maybe you shouldn't be aware of that, but I think when you get older, you're able to fine-tune that balance, I think. I don't know. Am I talking shit? Sorry.
No, it's hard to do both of those things at the same time. It's hard to honor your influences while at the same time trying to create something wholly new and wholly your own.
Right. But I think the definition of a great artist is someone who is able to who can do both. Who can do both, where it's like you're kind of saying, okay, thanks for creating all this, all these different colors. I know that it's been going for centuries now. It took to create like we were talking about, this like massive palette of sounds and colors, whatever. But thank you for that. But guess what? I'm going to do something that you all said I'm not allowed to do. You know what I mean? It's like, and you know what? If you look at Bach or some of the great, Beethoven, all these guys they said, these are the rules. You're only allowed to use these chords. They actually, all of those, maybe not all of them, but someone like Bach was actually breaking a lot of those rules already. You know what I mean? So it's like, blah blah blah. I mean, I think, I don't know. Well, I forgot what we're talking about.
I mean, I think this is a way of you saying that that's what you were attempting to do on your first solo album. You were trying to invent yourself, and you were trying to you were trying to invent something new with what you were creating.
Right, but you know what? Also, my first album is also a reaction to like the whole grunge rock scene, which I think, sure, I do like Nirvana and I do like Mudhoney and especially the Melvins. I was actually a huge Melvins fan, but I think when the grunge thing explosion happened, I was not really having it. There was a bunch of people around me that wanted to start a grunge band with me, and I just thought, well, then I'm just going to do exactly what I was doing in Transilians, which is trying to, like, have this image that fits into this, like, scene. You know what I what I mean? And I was actually in a grunge band in Toronto called Life Like Weeds, and I was kind of just doing it because it was cool and we had long hair, but I didn't really believe in the music. I gotta be honest, I wasn't really, and it was kind of because of the grunge scene that I felt even more of a there was more of a need for me to make, you know, my own my spooky music, which was even more of a contrast to like the grunge scene. You know what I mean? Because to me, grunge rock was going backwards from where I was trying to go with Transillian. And I just thought, really? It's like, we're going to make all this progressive fucking technical metal shit, and then we're going to step backwards into where people are playing like sort of 60s influence kind of dirty rock with a little like punk rock edge in there. Like, I just thought, that's not the future, you know? That's not the future.
So how did you make Modes of Transportation? How did that come about? So what happened is, while I was in film school, Much Music, which is the MTV of Canada, they have this thing called Video Fact. It was called, where they have an incentive to support the music videos by Canadian artists. So they would have you would have to submit an application with a script for a video, and from that script, and then based on what you send them, they would give you money. So I applied for the Video Fact. The first time I failed, I applied again 3 months later, and then I got $9,000 to make a music video. And then, and I actually made the song, These Days Are Old. I made the song in order to make the music video. And then the music video became kind of a hit on Much Music. And then I got a couple of phone calls from record labels like Network Records out of Vancouver, and they were like, "Dude, your video is great. Do you have any more songs?" And I was like, "More songs?" So then Network Records, I was like, okay, they want 4 more songs, or they want me to make a demo. And I was like, okay. So then it took me about another 7 months to make 3 more songs. It took me a long time to make 3 more songs just on my 4-track recorder. And then... And that's how you recorded These Days Are Old also? You recorded that on your own 4-track?
Well, actually, These Days Are Old was recorded at a studio, at a 16-track studio in Toronto. I mean...
And did you play everything on that?
Yes, I did. But, I mean, it's drum programming, and, you know, I program the drums, and, you know, anyway. And then the joke is that I sent the cassette to Network Records, and they were like, "We don't get it. We don't like your other songs. We only like These Days Are Old." And then I was like, "Oh shit." So then I sent the cassette that I made. I sent it to like 12 other record labels. And I remember I had like a list of record labels to send it to, and there was this. I was like, oh yeah, I really like TBT Records because they have 9 Inch Nails, but like, they're not going to like my music, but you know what? I've got this extra cassette. I'm just going to send it to TBT Records also. And then check this, and then 8 months after that, I get a call on my birthday from the head of A&R at TBT Records, Tommy Sarek. He's like, "Hey, is this Spooky? Yeah, we just listened to your cassette, and we would like to fly you down to New York and talk to you about your music." And I was like, holy shit. So, basically every record label I sent it to said no, and then TBT Records calls me out of nowhere.
Pretty sweet.
So
that's an amazing thing for anybody.
I know, because even when I talked to my lawyer, he said the percentage of getting signed by sending a cassette to an A&R person was like 1 in a million or something. It was like never happened. And my A&R guy said that basically he had a pile of cassettes on his desk, like a mountain of cassettes, and he just put his hand into the pile, pulled out the cassette, put it in, and These Days Are Older came on. And he's like, oh, this sounds fucking great or something. And then they saw my video. At this point, my video is like almost 2.5 years old, you know? So, because I made the video in like 1992, and then it wasn't until 1994 that I got the call for TBT. So when the record label, the rest of the record label, they saw at first, my A&R guy didn't like my music video. But then the rest of the record label, the president of TBT Records, Steve Gottlieb, he saw my music video and he said, oh, this is great. He's like the Canadian version of Beck. And then they're like, let's sign him. He's the Canadian answer to Beck. And the fact is, I made my video before Beck made his Loser video. Do you know that?
No.
No one knows that. Yeah, no one knows that. People think I ripped off Beck when I made my These Days Are Old video. People think it was supposed to be like I'm copying Beck, and it's like, you're wrong. My shit came out before Beck. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can see a connection. You know, I could see how people could think that you have some similarities.
Sure, and I guess it's also, I think it is kind of, you know, I think the alternative, you know, the sort of, I mean, what's great about Nirvana is what they did is they kind of blew the whole industry, music industry open in terms of like, oh, we don't have to sign hair metal bands anymore, and we don't have to sign like, you know, Tiffany or what's it called, like Boys to Men or whatever the fuck. We can sign like bands such as like, I don't know, the Melvins and, Butthole Surfers. We could sign Flaming Lips. We could sign Eels. We can sign Beck. You know what I mean? So that's what kind of
it was quote unquote alternative music at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And
and you're definitely like an alternative. It's an alternative to listening to metal. It's an alternative to listening to hardcore. And like you said, it's not easily classifiable, the music that you make.
I feel like in my mind I'm trying to figure out, I feel like I don't totally understand how the grunge metal, or not grunge metal, but like how the grunge rock and alternative thing was all happening, because it was all happening at the same time, basically.
Yeah, it's the funny thing. They called, grunge was sort of called alternative too, or
right.
Grunge was played on the same alternative station.
I know, right? It's just weird, because if you think about it, because I think...
But the other bands were kind of the alternative to listening to grunge. It's the alternative to grunge and to pop and to hip hop and, to these things that were kind of easily classifiable.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, because I think, I remember the way it was that, Soundgarden, they would play Soundgarden on 120 Minutes and on Headbangers Ball. So in a way, it was like, but I don't think, but see, when Nirvana came out, then the Headbangers Ball thing basically disappeared.
Because there's no distinction. Like you said,
right.
there's no distinction between that and popular music anymore.
Right. Yeah. Crazy shit, man. Crazy time.
So what did TBT essentially, do for your music? What did it do for your albums? And, how did you move on as a solo artist then?
Well, I mean, it was amazing, I feel like, I think it's hard for me to imagine. I don't even know I don't know where I'd be without TBT, because that really, a lot of people say, oh, you should have signed to a bigger label because you would have made it, you would have made it bigger and all this stuff. And, that's partially true, but I think there's something about TBT that did work for the first album. Unfortunately, the not so good news is that after my first album, my A&R guy left. He left for MCA Records. He became the head of MCA Records, and I don't know, he talked about taking me with him over there and all this stuff, and it's like the music industry was already changing, and anyway, it was mainly like a lot of things fell apart because for many reasons. Like, there's a bunch of reasons why I wasn't able to really maintain it like in a professional way. Let's say my solo career. It took me. It's just, God. That's a whole nother story. But I feel like I just want to say that, like, I didn't really get the support I needed from the label when I made my second album. And I think a lot of people also felt like it was kind of, it had taken me too long to make the second album, which and I can point the finger at like my management or different people at the time, but a lot of and I was also very, if I look at myself now compared to then, I was totally out of my mind. I was very hyperactive. I was bouncing off the walls with all these ideas I wanted to do, and kind of stressing out. I think I freaked a lot of people out in my management team. I probably burned a lot of bridges too. You know, and I think also my girlfriend was in my band at the time, and I think we had been on tour for like 2 years, basically, kind of on and off. I mean, almost nonstop, like Japan, Germany, UK, blah blah blah. And I remember that the breaking point. I know this for a fact. The breaking point with my management was when, after we had just opened up for Ben Folds 5 in Germany, playing in front of like thousands of people, and then we get back to Canada, and it was like, and we were totally exhausted at this point, and I also wasn't like very business minded. You know, I mean, I still am not. I'm not business minded. I wish I was business minded. Anyway, they were like, "Oh, okay, that's good. You're back because we've got you on this tour starting next week, and you have to open up across Canada. You got to open up for the Killjoys." And I looked at my girlfriend, and she looked at me, and she said, "No, I'm not doing it." And I was like, and I was kind of thinking, why the fuck would we open up for the Killjoys, who I thought was like a kind of mediocre kind of, they should, like, I was thinking they should be opening up for us. That's what I was telling. I told my management, I said, the Killjoys should be opening up for me. I'm not fucking going from opening up for Ben Folds 5, coming back to Canada, and then opening up for the Killjoys. And so it was like a 24-hour argument. And I basically, with my girlfriend, I'm breathing down my neck saying, I'm not touring anymore. And basically we said, I'm not doing that tour. And that basically ruined, that was like a big fuck up in my career where I did the wrong thing. You know what I mean? I should have, things would be way, if I had done that tour, I would be in a completely different place right now. That's what I think. So, there's another little story for you.
Yeah, I mean, there are always crossroads in in your career as an artist, but I mean, it's hard to go back there because you were so exhausted, you know, and it's hard to get yourself psyched up for when you're exhausted like that for continuing to go on the road, especially when you don't feel like, you know, that's the kind of show you want to be playing.
And I mean, and also, you know what, I feel like, you know what I didn't have, when I look at a lot of younger musicians that are like, have like these very steady careers, and they've got this whole thing mapped out with the record label and the tour and all that stuff. It's like, and 9 times out of 10, they actually have a like they come from a music business family or from an entertainment family where they have support from their parents. And in my case, my parents didn't really understand what I was doing. You know, they didn't. I tried to kind of like, you know, I would kind of say, look, I'm playing in Japan, and my dad would be like, oh, yeah, oh, really? He'd be kind of like, you know, not really, I don't think he really understood, like, that I was kind of onto something, you know? I think he kind of, like, looked at it like, oh, that's going to fail, or something, you know what I mean? And, like, so he didn't really, I feel like if I had, so, you know, I don't come from a music business family, so I don't have that, you know, that sort of structure, you know, like, so it's just, you know, you can't have it all, you know what I'm saying? I mean, whatever, I mean, it's,
If you had that kind of mind, then you wouldn't necessarily have the mind to make the kind of art that you do.
Right, exactly. Like if my dad was Billy Ray Cyrus, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't think I would have been able to write These Days Are Old. Let's put it that way.
Well, so I mean, the music on your second album, are you still proud of the music that you made?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I mean, you know, it took me a long time to make the album because part of me was also like, I was coming to terms with this whole thing of like, oh fuck. So I was thinking, oh shit. So if I make another album, that means I'm gonna have to fucking go on tour again for 2 years and be completely like, just, fucked. I mean, the thing about going on tour is that you're not actually living the life as an artist. You're living the life of a slave, fucking, of a slave to the business. And when you play live, I mean, I love playing live. Trust me, I love performing on stage, and I love hearing my voice like coming out of the big speakers and everything. But the traveling and all that shit, it just drives you. It just turns you into an insane person. Like, it's not really. It's kind of inhumane, and I feel like I am actually I feel like I could go on tour now that I've kind of seen the entire picture of what's available to you as an artist. But I don't know, the whole thing of touring. It's just touring is basically it's just this brainwash of living in a bubble where you're just tired from the minute that you wake up and from the minute that you go to bed, and you live in this fucking weird. You're not really able to concentrate on anything. It's just one thing after another, and they just, you know what I mean? It's not I mean, anyway, it's to be a writer, a songwriter, and be touring at the same time. I don't. That doesn't really mix. It's two opposite. It's like you have to screw on two different heads. It's like if you're the touring artist, then you just put the screw on this head that's like a robot head, where like you have nothing to say, and they put you from one bus into the next bus, and then you go on stage, and then you go to bed, and then you wake up, you're tired from the day before, blah, blah, blah. There's no time to actually conceive of any, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so it took me a long time to write the new album because I was just thinking, oh God, I'm going to make this album, and then I'm going to go through that hell thing again. You know what I mean? So.
To be in your lap, oh my God, she thinks she can rule the world. This ain't no town, it's 'cause she doesn't live here too. In the distance, she's constantly calling. Fill me up, 100% guilt-free. What am I gonna do? To go or to stay? Drive through. Fast as fresh can get what you want, she said. What you want, what you get. Every town, every day. What I want is a whole lot more. I want the taste of the month that I had last month. Every order gets a regular smile for free. 1 billion trees equals 2 double burgers with cheese. You say. Take this exit 'cause I just saw that good old gasoline sign. There you are, and I'm so happy.
I feel like now I'm a lot more. I feel like I'd be able to handle it differently. I think I'd be able to handle it. But back then, I didn't know because it was all new to me. No one told me how it's going to be. No one told me what, success looks like. I think in my mind I thought, oh, this album's going to come out and everything's going to be wonderful and, everyone's going to buy my album and that's it. There was no real follow-up. I never thought of, any kind of, what's going to happen after that. And it never crossed my mind. I wanted to actually collaborate with other musicians. I wanted to collaborate with Square Pusher, and I was writing. I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to make a bunch of instrumental albums, and I had all sorts of ideas. But it's like you've got management companies, got this record label, and they want to do this, and the album better be ready by this time, and blah blah blah, and it's just. And then I'm thinking, you know what? This isn't the reason why I made my album. Why am I doing this? I don't want to be. You know what I mean?
Well, when did you get a chance to find that balance again in your life?
Well, I don't know if I have because I haven't really toured in a long time. I've been trying to get a proper booking agent, a U.S. booking agent for a long time. I've been trying to get a record label for the past 6 years. I've been basically given the runaround by various record labels, Canadian indie labels, all giving me the runaround. Oh, we think you're great. We're gonna sign you to our record label, and then 6 months go by, they disappear. All of a sudden, this other label comes up, and it's because I just don't have. I'm completely, I'm totally I've totally run out of money. I'm barely surviving. And I can't really. I need a bigger team to be able to put out an album. I need to have either a management company or a record label or something. People to share the wealth with in a proper way, to be able to, and that's why I've been looking for a record label because I had my own record label for a long time, but I've only lost money with that. I signed a bunch of bands, they never did anything with it, and on and on and on. Anyway, what's weird? Okay,
what?
Go ahead.
No, what were you gonna say? What's weird?
No, you know what? Forget about it.
All right. Well, what I was gonna say is, there were a lot of those bands that you started out with, and a lot of guys that were very talented musicians. From Northern Virginia or from the DC scene. They never, they never made a video. They never got to have a record label or any kind of promotion or go on tour or, a lot of these things. So I guess the question is kind of what do you think success is as a musician? How do you define success now as an artist? Now that you've had a certain level of success, but you continue to be an artist and a creative person.
Well, okay. I think I can answer that question. The answer is very simple. If you are, to me, being a successful artist means that you are solely making a living off of your art. That, to me, is being a successful artist.
So you're defining it in financial terms, though.
Yeah, because that's kind of the point. That's where I'm at right now. Because I feel like I'm not at that stage right now. But I would like to be there. I would like to be at that level. And when I say that, I'm not talking about making millions of dollars. I'm talking about I see a lot of bands that are not even necessarily that talented, but they've been able to create a a flow, some kind of workflow where they have a following and they can go on tour and they can make another album and they can put out music videos and it's their life. Their life is their art, you know? It's like it's a self-sufficient kind of thing that they've created, you know? And I feel like I kind of, ever since being dropped from Zomba Records in like 2003 or whatever it was, that's all I ever wanted.
Look, you were, it seems like, able to be a successful artist for a decade or so.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you were able to support yourself just with your music and have some opportunities and experiences that, you know, people a lot of musicians can only dream about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Even if they're not all that they're always cracked up to be, you know?
Right.
So I mean, you have had, by your own definition of success, you've had success.
Right. And
as a musician.
Right. And I feel like when I say, you know, I mean, of course, there's different, you know, I also agree with this idea that, you know, if you create a great work of art, whether it's recognized or not, you're successful. Of course, I agree with that also. You know, I mean, whether you have, you know, whether people are buying, you know, whether you're making a living off of it or not. If you created like some kind of genius masterpiece artwork, of course you're a successful artist. You know, I agree with that too. But I think for me personally right now, it's like I've put in so much into building this, like, you know, I feel like I didn't even really do it that consciously. It's just that's kind of how I operate, or that's how I've been operating, is just making, you know, I mean, for many years I was working, when I first moved to LA, I got really heavy into writing music for TV commercials and stuff, which was kind of, so yes, I made a shitload of money back in that, for that phase, but that wasn't really what I wanted. That was kind of a distraction from what I really wanted to do, and it kind of made me angry that after 5 years of doing that shit, I realized, like, why am I don't even want to, this is not why I came to LA. I didn't move to LA to become a composer, you know what I mean? So that was kind of like, so it's just, you know, so it's just kind of seeing these things from different angles, you know, and I feel like you can look at, and, you know, it's when you get involved in making music and making money from music or making money off of art, it's like, it's always that weird thing where you're trying to find a balance between what, you know, maintaining your you know, I mean, I don't even want to say the word brand, because that makes me, that's going to really get me going, and I'll get really angry.
Maintaining your audience?
Maintaining your audience, because I actually made a whole video that I was going to put on YouTube where I talk about how it pisses me off when this like young generation of bands are like so into this, like, you know, if you're a band, then you're a brand. And that actually nothing makes me more angry than that sort of attitude. It pisses me off. It's like, you know what? It's like, the reason why I'm in a band is because I don't want to have anything to do with brands. That's why I make music. That's the reason why I make art. That's the reason I'm interested in fucking art in general, is because it has nothing to do. It shouldn't have anything to do with fucking branding or, you know, fucking corporate strategizing or whatever the fuck. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah, but maybe that's part of that business mindset that, you know, this generation has that we never had. You know, that they seem to be just like born with.
Yeah, but it's like they're
But
yeah, but no, because I think, I mean, I just don't
respect that mindset.
It's just, I just think I know there's artists out there that, even young artists, that would agree with me. Let's put it that way. I know that there are young artists who are not on Facebook. I know there are a lot of young artists who just don't even deal with fucking, who, you know what I mean? I think, you know, I just think, to me, this, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, when you start branding, like, punk rock, or, you know, and then it's going to be harder. It gets harder and harder to find some kind of outlet that is truly anti-fucking all that shit. You know? I mean,
yeah. Well, that's truly like art for its own sake.
Yeah, or maybe it's just like, again, it's like, for me, it's like, I always come back to, it's like, whatever, it's like, to me, if you're an artist and you're ever lost in, like, what you're, I mean, I don't know, you know, there's different types of artists. I mean, I think, all I can say is that, for me, personally, what always, I think, works is, like, if you feel like you're being if you're painting yourself into a corner of, like, you know, people saying, oh, you should work with this guy, or you need to, you know, or you're lost in terms of, like, what you want to say artistically. I think, you know, you should think about, for me, it's like, I need to think about what can I do musically that frees me, that actually allows me to escape fucking all of this shit. You know what I mean? And I think if you concentrate on that, you can really find that to me is really the essence of, you know, what being, what, you know, what, that's the epitome. That to me is like the ultimate thing that you can get out of making art, is to be able to transport yourself out of all these constraints. Yeah, I think.
What were the musical moments throughout that did that for you? I'm talking about in your own work. Like, when did you feel that?
Well, I mean, I think when the first Translations, like, album, like the actual Mouthful of Buildings came out, I felt like, you know what, I feel like we made something that, like, it incorporates all of our influences, that, you know, like Voivod and Adolescence, Beyond Possession, No Means No, or, you know, I mean, a lot of our hardcore influences are there, except, to me, what I thought was cool about making our own album is that, but it was also like a new message within that. I think we had a new, you know, we were also kind of taking all of that into a new dimension, you know, and kind of, I think that's the part that really, that I was proud of.
heart is the motor, the brain's the computer, one transmits to the other. Enzymes reacting, producing, subtracting in the process of digesting. One simple movement is a complex operation.
We had made an album that sounded exactly like, or just, fit within the vernacular of, let's say, these sort of generic kind of hardcore metal structures. I would feel like, what's the point of that? Like, we gotta make something that's like futuristic. It's like fucking stepping out and like actually grabbing onto new things in order to, I don't know, because I think that's kind of that's the whole thing with jazz too. It's like a lot of people think, to me the worst is like these jazz students at Berkeley who are like, they're learning all these traditional kind of forms in jazz, and then they learn exactly how to play. They get the same guitars, all the equipment. It's all like authentic jazz equipment or whatever, and it's like they're staying true to these jazz standards. And it's like the reason why that's almost a little bit offensive to the people that came up with that shit is because when the people that came up with that shit, that was actually an act of rebellion. Now, jazz is an act of like of totally rebelling against classical music and whatever, like country and shit. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're just gonna wear the uniforms that they created, then you're not actually being like them because they would have ripped up that uniform. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of my whole trip, basically.
Did you, in terms of your solo work, is there, are there songs that you would put forward as representational of what you were aspiring to do?
Where you think I hit the nail on the head, you mean?
Yeah. Well, you're saying you feel like you achieved something with Transilient.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering.
You mean my solo work, yeah. Well, definitely These Days Are Old. I hit a mark there because I think I was definitely interested in combining things. I think I'm still interested in that, and it's weird because I think, especially on my first album, I was really just wanted to just blow my own mind and other people's minds, and I just wanted to create like shit that was just like where every element was something that was not real. Well, how do I explain it? I mean, I think, in These Days Are Old, let's take These Days Are Old as an example. I think what I was trying to do there, I was trying to contrast, let's say, industrial type drum programming with acoustic kind of flamenco guitar, then vocals that were inspired by Shudder to Think, which was a huge influence on me, and that comes back to the DC thing because I don't know where my music would be without Shudder to Think, because they were, that Craig Wedren had such an influence on me. I went to see many of his shows when I was in high school, and we opened up for Shudder to Think actually at DC Space in 1987, so Shudder to Think, what I think was just such an original band with his high singing with the highest falsetto vocals. I don't think there's any other band that was doing that in the area. they were not. They, even though they were kind of lumped in with the Discord scene because they were signed to Discord, they were not. Their music was outside of the hardcore. They weren't really hardcore guys. I mean, maybe the bass. The bass player who used to be in Swizz, he joined the band way later. Anyway, so whatever. Okay, I mean, I'm veering off, but basically, singing with the sort of high, kind of almost effeminate vocals. I kind of learned that from Craig Wendron, and it's just, and there's like that one bit in the song where there's like these like sound effects, and I was super into sampling like weird sounds, like window glass smashing, and I just thought I always liked playing with a sampler, like sampling just weird sounds. I mean it's a very like childish thing to do, like dog barking and rockets going off, explosions, and whatever. So, but I always loved samplings, So I think I was just combining a bunch of different things. In my mind, I thought I was combining a bunch of things that I loved and putting them all into one song, which I think was pretty bold. I mean, pretty daring, and it's also only the type of thing I could have done by myself using like with limited equipment, because I think the minute you bring in a band, the whole thing, it's like it's a different experience,
Yeah, totally.
So
I mean, I've done the same thing, working as a solo artist and in a band,
right.
And they're completely different ways of making songs.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and I think later on, like I think maybe more on like Bed and Breakfast, I think I got more. I think my music is, over the years, has turned into doing more things where it's like I'm doing things that I personally just always wanted to do, and it's not so much about where every color has to be like, in contrast to another. I don't think I haven't been focusing so much on, like I have a song like called The Office, which is on my album Breakfast, where it's like, I think musically there's nothing, I'm not doing anything that's like sonically like groundbreaking. If anything, it's very retro. Like a lot of my stuff, I think I've gotten more into this sort of retro kind of thing because I think I'm just inspired to actually do things that just make me happy, and it's not so much about, I think where I'm listening to it thinking, oh wow, that actually does kind of sound like some old school shit, And you realize that you can actually, a lot of times I just get a kick out of the fact that like I'm actually able to make things the way that people were doing it, like in the 60s and 70s or whatever. You know what I mean? Or like there's a song on my new album, Roads 3, where I have this. The first song on the album is kind of like it's like a techno pop kind of song, which I think a lot of my my hardcore fans, I know for a fact they don't really like it. And it's like, but you know what? I didn't actually want them to like it. You know, that's the thing. Like, I didn't, and like, I don't necessarily, and I feel like I'm more and more, I'm thinking about like, I don't even necessarily know if I need to like it at some point. I'm kind of thinking like, because at some point it's like I'm also kind of just doing, because I mean, you know, I'm also like, you know, I'm in the winter of my 40s, right? And I kind of feel like when you've heard so much music in your life, and especially working a lot as a composer, it becomes more like about, not so much about whether I like it or whether anyone likes it. It's more like I actually just want to try these certain things that I've never done before. You know what I mean? And when I do work on it, and then I learn to like it. I learn to actually understand some of these formats, like from EDM and so, you know, and or just, you know, I'm still learning, and I want to learn about it. And I don't necessarily, you know, maybe I don't necessarily need to love it right from the get-go, but I'm interested in how all this music is being made. You know, my curiosity, luckily, I feel like my curiosity has never stopped when it comes to, you know, all types of, you know, music in general. I feel like I'm always hearing things every day. I'm like, wow, how'd they do that? I want to do that. Where's where's that sound coming from? Let's put that on the album. You know what I mean? Like I want to do, and I feel like, I mean, so there's so much I still want to do musically, you know, but it's, you know, I feel like when you're caught up in just trying to pay the rent and everything, as you get older, it gets harder and harder to just make the time to sit down and focus on a recording, focus on the idea that you have and like finishing it. You know, it's just not that easy. You know?
Well, so what are you working on musically right now, and what are you doing visually too? Like how are you using that film degree of yours?
Right. Well, actually, right now I'm working on a score for this Canadian indie movie, and that's one thing I'm doing. I'm also I'm starting. You know, I started working on a new album. My new idea is I actually want to. My new thing is I'm actually trying to put more of a band together. That's like where we rehearse. Something that I feel like I want to do for my next album. It may even be titled it under a band name, not necessarily Spookey Ruben, but Carson Cohen, the bass player that I've been working with for the past 15 years. Him and I are kind of putting together a band. So we're gonna try and actually, maybe it's a little bit ambitious, but we want to actually record We actually want to rehearse an entire album and then record it as a band, which in my mind is very groundbreaking because I don't even know anyone who does that. That to me is groundbreaking. In the year 2018, the idea of rehearsing with a band an entire album and then recording it in like 2 days, that's like outrageous. So that's one of the ideas I have. And then
do you guys have a band name yet? I mean, do you are you
Yeah, we do. I just don't know if I want to tell you what it is right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's more than just the two of you.
Yeah, and like we're still kind of figuring out who else is going to be in the band because it's we're still kind of it's in its infant stages. I mean, we have about 3 songs in terms of. See, my thing is like I don't want to write the bass line. I don't want to write all the parts for the people in the band. I have outlines. I got lyrics and everything, but I want to kind of show the basic chords and then we build it together as a band. Where everyone figures out their own parts. That's what I really would like to do.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do in a band, Spooky.
I know, but who does that? Who does that? all the bands now. If you ever see, we've got a band, you look at it. It's not a band. It's a duo. It's a girl and a guy with a computer. It's not a band. All bands now are duos. Obviously, when I say I'm making a band, obviously I'm coming to the band with like written kind of things, right? Anyway, you know what I don't know why I mean. Okay.
Well, it sounds like songs come to you, to some extent, like fully formed in your head.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, in fact, what's weird is that for this what I'm doing, the way I made, like we've got these 2 kind of songs that we kind of put together in MIDI, and like I keep telling Carson, I want to keep the MIDI as bare as possible because I want the bass player. Well, actually, Carson is the bass player, but especially the drums. I don't want to do drum. I like the patterns that we've made. We've got 2 songs that we've created laid out in MIDI, right? And intentionally, I've kept it really sparse because I want the band to surprise me with what the extra notes are. You see what I'm saying? Because I've already done that. I've already made so many albums where it's like I played all this shit, and it doesn't really. It doesn't excite me anymore. I actually hate sitting in front of a fucking computer making music. I've done it my whole life, and it doesn't. I don't get off on talking about plugins or fucking compressors and shit. I could give a fucking rat's ass about this gear shit. And like my whole fucking inspiration for making a band is that I want to get into a rehearsal room and play with other musicians. And I don't want it to be, I want it to be a band feeling. I don't want it to be like, these guys are like, well, how much are you paying me an hour? It's like, go fuck yourself. Like, we're going to make a fucking quality album. Do you want to be a part of that? Do you want to be a part of making an excellent album where we're going to have, like, porn sections and fucking, you know what I mean? Like, I want to make a fucking, like, the type of shit, the Carson and I, the type of shit we're talking about, and if you hear the demos, I mean, I don't know if this is up your fucking alley, but it's kind of like something like, it's like Steely Dan meets fucking rock, some other type of shit. So it definitely has some, some serious musician-y kind of shit in there that I really want. But I don't really hear what I'm tired of. The type of music I'm really cannot listen to anymore. It's like it goes in one ear and comes out the other. Is this super perfected kind of sugar pop that's on the radio, and it goes from like the alternative end, which is like the X, what do they call it, the XX, or just that ultra produced pop shit, and then it's like it doesn't interest me. It doesn't. Anyway, the music I'm listening to right now, I listen to like a lot of 70s fucking, like I listen to like old Chicago. That's like my favorite shit. And I don't know if you've ever listened to old Chicago, but it's like,
yeah, like the first album, like when
Yeah.
they were still Chicago Transit Authority.
Exactly. Or actually, my favorite is the second album. Anyway, these guys are fucking on fire. It's like I listen to that shit and I think, this is exciting. This I want to listen to this. Whereas all that music that's on KCRW, it sounds like it's all made on the same computer. All that EDM shit. It's like, I get it. It's so refined. You're using like all these fucking digital compressors on every single element, and it's all fucking, the mix is fucking amazing. It's shiny, it's sparkly, the fucking kick drum is right there, boom. So what? I don't give a fuck. It's boring. It's like, it would be exciting if there was one band doing that. But it's all the same now. And all that alternative EDM shit, or whatever you want to call it, all that fucking pretty ass shit. It's like, give me a fucking break. That's all I can say. And so,
No, I'm right there with you, man. I am. I so understand what you're talking about.
really,
And I turn on, like, I try out. I'm always looking for something new, and I feel like I'm on like Spotify or whatever, trying to try out all the new releases and trying to try out new music, and like hoping every time that I'm gonna listen to something and it's actually gonna grab me, and like nothing does. I had,
right.
as opposed to when we used to go into CD stores and, you couldn't buy everything and you'd have to like pick something out,
Right.
and you couldn't try out as much as you wanted to, but there was stuff to choose from. It's like now you have like everything to choose from and there's nothing that you want.
Right. I know.
So,
I just feel like, it's like what I hear on a lot of these new records. It's like I hear that they're always putting all of the, like, it's all done, it's all crafted really well. I mean, and they're putting, but the thing is, they're all using the same compressors, and they're putting like the problem is when you put a compressor on first of all, they're putting compressors on each fucking inch, on the hi hat, on the snare, on the kick drum, and so everything is fucking cranked, and it's fucking, but it's cranked within it's a compressor limiter that they're putting on all these things, right? And then on top of that, they put another compressor on top of the whole fucking mix. So now everything is fucking sparkling, it's fucking banging, but it's all being suppressed. That's what a compressor is. It's suppressing everything. And my trip is, I want to make an album with no compressors. That's what I'm going to make. My next album I want to make with Carson, we're going to actually record everything nicely, and we're not going to fucking put compressors on any of that shit. In fact, we're going to fucking mix that shit like so that if you want to mix it, you actually have to pay attention because you're not going to have a compressor limiter that's going to fucking duck all that shit. It's something that's going to stick out. Like, what I don't like about some of these mixes now, it's like, they're like, okay, check this out. We're going to blow your mind. We're going to put the biggest kick drum right here. Boom. And it's going to just, but the thing is, it's still within this super compressed world. So yeah, it's like, oh, that's shocking. Here comes a shocking sound. But the fact is, it has a big pillow on top of it, so it's not that shocking. I'm sorry. It's like, you know, how about turn all the compressors off, right? And we'll just fucking record excellent, just quality sounds with a microphone.
And the thing is, they have access to the best microphones imaginable.
I know. And then they make the biggest crime where they just, because all these guys will say the same thing. They always say, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what microphone you're using, because we are going to put this through this amp, and then it goes into the compressor, and it sounds like magic. And it's like, okay, I mean, you're right. You don't need a great mic when you put it through that fucking, that overpowered fucking amp, power amp compressor, whatever the fuck, that digital fucking, plug-in.
But you take all the humanity out of it and you make everything flat and two-dimensional.
Exactly. It's not actually, because I listen to Chicago and it's like, you listen to Chicago and it's like, wow, the kick drum is, there's no real, the snare sounds like shit. The whole drums are like fucking, there's no real bottom end on the drums, and the snare sounds like a fucking piece of wood. But the thing is, it's someone's fucking, you can tell that someone was actually playing that drum kit. I don't know, whoever's playing drums on that Chicago, the second album, is a fucking genius. And he's like ripping that shit apart. He's like tearing up the drum kit. And it's like, yeah, it's not a great recording, but you know what? It has so much energy, and it's not boosted to anything. I mean, it's just fucking raw, man. And it's just, a lot of these people, see, the problem with all these people, the reason why when you have bands and they need all these compressors and all this shit and fucking quantization, they need all that shit because they suck. They're actually suck-ass musicians. That's the deal. So, because you can record, yeah.
Or they're scared. They're scared of it not sounding perfect.
Right. That's it. And then, we live in such a fucked up 2018 or whatever. We live in such a fucked up world that the hardest thing to do is to actually do something normal. To actually just do, like, we're so removed from just like real, a piece of wood hitting a piece of metal. It's like, you have to try 10 times harder to make that happen. It's like the difference between, like a bottle of apple juice, like pasteurized apple juice, is cheaper than an actual apple. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's the world that's the music scene. It's like, it's more elaborate. I mean, it takes way more production to just record someone banging a stick against a piece of metal than it is to play it, to like find a sample of it on, in Splice or whatever the fuck, and just trigger that shit on a drum machine or in Pro Tools. You know what I mean? And I think like there's something really wrong about that. You know what I mean? I think there's just at some point it's like music has become so processed and over processed, and even the way people listen to music is so doubled over. It's like double entendre fucking, it's just this double, they're not really, there's so many layers of of all of it, and it's just, I mean, there's no reality there. You know, I don't know.
Well, listen, I mean, Spooky, that's how people felt in the 80s, for a lot of the 80s, and
Right.
The people that put out music that didn't conform to that, if you go back and listen, a lot of it is really interesting, and then it also gave rise to the alternative scene, whatever you want to call that, of the 90s, when bands and artists such as yourself were able to make something really, really different and original. So
right.
hopefully that's on the rise. Hopefully that's just over the horizon.
Well, I mean, you know what it comes down to is that I feel that I know, I guess what it boils down to is, for me, it's like, unless I feel like my music is actually really how I feel about music in general, then I kind of feel like I'm not being a whole, a full-on artist. If I'm not, so in other words, my music will always be reactionary. It will always be reactionary to like what's hip and what's not, what's considered hip. And in other words, like, because or what I'm sick of, I think sometimes what I tell people is like, I think sometimes it's actually, I know this may sound a little negative, okay, but I think sometimes the way, a path to finding your own sound is actually knowing what you do not like. In other words, if you know you don't like these bands, if you don't like this, and you don't like that about this band, you don't like these elements, you don't like, this thing has been overdone, it's tiring, it's sickening. It's like, the more you can actually identify all the things that you don't like about music, then it's going to actually make your own sound more defined, because you know exactly when you're making your own album, you're like, well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to use this bank of like, overused flute, synth sounds or whatever the fuck. I'm not going to use I'm not going to use these kind of fucking symbols, or I'm not going to use like, you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like sometimes it's actually good to know what you don't like.
Well, I'm going to have to go, because I actually, I have graduation coming up tonight. I didn't know that we were even going to go this long. So I'm going to have to race over to graduation. So let me ask you one more question.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a silly one to end on, but, how do you feel about sort of being labeled a Canadian artist when we all know that your true roots are in Northern Virginia?
Okay. Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like I feel like I really think of myself more as, I think the fact that I live in LA actually kind of answers that question, because I really don't like, I feel like the problem with being labeled or just being a Canadian artist, there are some good things about that, but I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of I don't know. It's very constricted when you're being a Canadian musician and trying to have a career in Canada is almost impossible unless you follow these certain rules. And like, I'm not, I'm Canadian. I'm a Canadian citizen, but I wouldn't call myself a Canadian musician. Let's put it that way.
Would you call yourself a product of the DC Nova 1980s 1990s scene?
Oh, well, of course. 100%. Are you kidding me? 100%.
No, for real. For real.
No.
Like,
Okay. You know what? Because I don't know. Because the one thing that maybe we did talk about that yesterday, but like, you know what the amazing thing was about growing up in DC was that, see, my friend and I, even though we were in high school, we were able to go to all these clubs, like 930 Club and DC Space. They would let us into these places. And that was really, that's my school of music, like seeing live bands. Like, I saw the Melvins in 1987 or 1986 playing at DC Space in front of like 30 people. I saw Helmet. In Baltimore. They played with Jawbox in 1987. And you know what happened? The microphones, okay, while Jawbox was playing, Jawbox opened up for Helmet. Okay, there was maybe 60 people there. The mic stand broke during Jawbox's set, and then Helmet went on, and they played their entire set instrumental because the mic stand was broken. I mean, what the fuck? Who does that? But this is the kind of shit that, like, it just fucking blew my mind seeing all this shit. And the fact that we were able to do this at such a young age, I mean, was incredible. I mean, I feel like in LA you can't get into a club if you're under 21. I don't know why we were able to do that. Why they would let us in. We snuck into all sorts of clubs. We saw like Broken Bones. What was they called? What was that band? Everyone. Anyway, every hardcore band you can imagine. Gore to. Oh God, it's just an endless list of bands that we used to check out. Fugazi, and some. I mean, you tell me, that's not normal though? Is it that we would be able to? I don't know why.
I don't know, man. I grew up I grew up there too, so I had a fake 16, ID, but.
But when you were 16, were you able to go to all these clubs?
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to the 930 when I was a teenager, and I don't remember there being an issue about getting in. Okay. I remember going to DC and going to the Black Cat. I remember going to all those kind of places. Because not only that, like at like 12 or 13, I remember going to see Primus and Anthrax and Public Enemy.
Whoa, nice.
Just and I was 12. Like, I had no business being in that show.
No, but don't you think, because I really think those were the moments that were the most, those were such important moments for me. To be able to see a band at that young of an age, I think that changes everything. I mean, I think for me that was the shit. I mean, I can't even, I just think like, I don't know where I'd be without any of that. So I just thought that was like an 80s thing, because in LA you can't get into any club if you're under 16, under 21. Actually, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the kids are missing out, man.
I mean, I think back in the 80s, I think you could. But I think it's wrong. I think young kids should be like Jam for Man, dude. Jams for Man. Young kids should be able to go see live bands. It'll change their life.